Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praise, honor, and glory to the Most High, Yahweh, Ba'Shem Yahweh Shai, Ba'Shem Wadash, and I want to say Shalom to Yaakov out there pursuing this truth diligently. Coming at you once again with another lesson. And this one's titled, Renowned Comedians Smash Through Esau's Little White Lies. Okay, renowned comedians smash through Esau's little white lies. And, of course, the little white lie or lies that are being talked about is dealing with Esau's identity overhaul, all right, of everybody in the world being so-called white. So we primarily see that with biblical depictions, but they've tried to do it with everyone, right? Apparently the Egyptians, they weren't black. The Cushites, they weren't black. The Israelites, of course, we weren't black, or brown. When I say black, various levels of brown. And Esau goes on all these different things, right? So that's their little white lies that we're talking about today. And I thought it was interesting that I came across this video on Instagram. Now, I guess it's by this guy. He left his, what do they call that there? Not a trademark, a watermark. Here, I guess his name is Original Black God. And so he's got this video here, which is really a compilation of a bunch. I know it's got this one you see on screen, of course, is George Carlin, which is he's a Jake. All right, even the apostles agree on that. And they're the ones that brought that out. And then it's got Norm. I think his name's Norm McDonald or something like that. Norm. It's got Chris Farley, and I think it might have someone else, but those are the three that stick out to me off the top of my mind or top of my head, right? So those are the ones that are smashing through the veil of Esau's, so-called little white lies. Now, Chris Farley, he could have been a Jake. He could have been. I don't know too much about him. At the end of the day, I know he was beloved, and I know he died, all right, overdosed on cocaine, but we can look into him. Chris Farley, I don't know too much about him. I don't know about where his background is, right? I don't think he's particularly the funniest guy, but let's see. He is Irish American, so yeah, very well could be. He could be a Jake, right? He could be. But it doesn't really give us too much other than that. So, I guess he got started on SNL and all that. So, anyway, what we're going to do is we're going to play this video. And I'm going to mute my mic while I do it. So, it doesn't, interfere with the video quality. But I'm going to go ahead and play this. And Lord willing, it'll be edifying. We'll stop it as we, need to. So, without any further ado,
so now a black woman plays Helen of Troy in a movie, and white people scream, historical accuracy! Accuracy? You painted over black Madonnas for 1,000 years, you fucking morons! You don't want accuracy, you want your comfortable life!
How could Alexander the Great be white if the Macedonians who were Greek were black? Can somebody explain that to me? I asked my friend Steve, he sells insurance. He said, I don't think about it.
Rome rearranged spells more! I didn't make this up, that's an anagram! The Romans didn't just have melanated emperors, the name itself is a confession. Rome was a black operation!
They won't make movies about the Moors, because if they did, white people would have no history to steal. They'd be exposed as the late arrivals they are, so they give you crumbs. One black Cleopatra, one black gladiator, never the full meal, because the truth would set you free, and they can't have that. Hannibal was black too, so Alexander grew up surrounded by black generals, black advisors, black soldiers, and the one white guy in the room was Alexander. That's what they want you to believe. That's like saying the one white guy in Compton in 1992 founded the Bloods. Doesn't add up.
It's pseudo just because you don't know it, that's fair. I don't know how airplanes work. But they still fly. You don't read about the Moors. You don't comprehend. You just talk. That's me at parties. Nobody invites me anymore.
If you think Greece was white, go read Nature Knows No Color Line by J.A. Rogers. It'll show you the black nobility of Europe. Or keep your mouth shut. One or the other. Preferably both. The Trojan War was Moorish. Memnon had braids. Fucking braids! And Helen was melanated, but every painting looks like a Scandinavian wedding.
Remember, Rome was founded by Etruscans and Sabaeans. Ethiopians from India. Italy's origin story starts in Africa and Asia, but they want you to think Caesar had a tan. He was brownie.
Severus was a melanated Roman emperor. But every statue shows a white dude with a perm, Renaissance repainting. We can't have a black Caesar. Paint that motherfucker beige. You know, a Moorish princess of Sicily kept science and philosophy alive during the Dark Ages. Not white monks, a black woman. But history books credit European civilization. What civilization? The one a princess saved from your ignorance? Cognitive dissonance. Beautiful term. People reject facts because it makes them feel stupid. So they use vague stuff. That's just a theory. That's not proven. Instead of picking up a goddamn book. You're not skeptical, you're scared.
You ever notice how history books always tell you those brave ancient mariners, the Phoenicians? People go, yeah, they're like white guys with sandals or something. Then you read this book, The World of the Phoenicians, Sabatino Muscati. Turns out the Greeks called them the red people. A little more sun than you...
White people have been claiming it for centuries like they found it in a dumpster. Oh, this is ours. No, motherfucker, that's stolen.
After Granada fell, they repainted every dark-skinned Madonna, every Moorish saint, every black philosopher, thousands of portraits whitewashed. That's not history. That's a goddamn crime scene.
Also, the Greeks didn't exist. Those were Peloponnesians, Macedonians, Ionians. Greek was a slur. So the entire foundation of Western civilization was built by people you were insulting. That's the biggest comeback in history. So now a black woman plays Helen of Troy in a movie, and white people scream, historical accuracy, accurate.
All right, so we got a lot to unpack there, and not everything is going to be 100% correct in the way that they said it, but there's a lot of information there, man, a lot of information. So if we go through here, let's see some of the ones that stick out to me at least. Let's see. Here, right here. This one's good.
Accuracy? You painted over black Madonnas for 1,000 years, you fucking morons. You don't want accuracy. You want your comfortable life.
How could...
So, and then there is one thing that I will call out is that there was a lot of, and again, the Edomites, again, don't look like they do exactly how they did back in the day. Matter of fact, they used to be hairier and redder. And to some extent, depending on where they were, all right, they might have not, again, I'm not saying that they were melanated, all right, but in certain areas, some of those Edomites, if you look at them, some of them can get a little bit of a tan. But it seems like they're trying to make it seem like Alexander the Great was a black man, and that's not the case at all. He was an Edomite. Okay, he was an Edomite, Alexander the Edomite, and that's a stumbling block that has came out before. As a matter of fact, Alexander. Excuse me. Let me get into my actual Bible page. One moment. Where are we? If I could find the pause button, it'd be just dandy. If I move this, there it is. All right. Now that I'm back in here, there was one. It was GMS Alexander the Great, or Alexander the Greek. Yeah, Alexander the Greek. Well, you can see right here from GMS GMS. The truth is here too. Alexander the Great bloodline, Edomite. Okay, so an Edomite. But there was one, Alexander the Great stumbling block. Alexander the Creep and his four generals. There was one, I believe it was on, it might have been on the Apostle Tahar's page. So let me go and see. Let's go to here. And type in Alexander. Nope. So let's go and do Elders in Transit 3. Alexander. Here it is. Right here. This is from Elders in Transit 3. New stumbling block. Alexander the Great was an Israelite, and he wasn't. So let's go and watch it. Just to wipe this out, right? Wipe that whole idea out. Okay. Now he might not have looked like exactly 100% like a how the Edomites do today, because I mean the Edomites have changed over time. You got white girls with, I want to keep it as Sabbath friendly as possible, but white girls with fatter, rear ends, which was never originally a biological trait of, so-called white women. Okay, that's kind of evolved over the last 20 to 30 years. Before then, I mean, I watch a lot of older movies. I was watching, and it's if you look at places that do not have larger black populations, so to speak, or I got to also include, all of them really, so-called Negro, Latino, and Native American, but the two that are big known for having, big asses, all right, Slovakia, for big asses. The two people that are known for the girls are having big asses is primarily black women and Mexican women, Latino women, all right, primarily. And you got Brazilian women, all the Latinas really, but you see a lot of people mention Mexican women, but Latina in general. Brazilian women, from what I've seen, I think have a little bit more going on, all right, but it just depends. Every woman's different, but Latina and Native Americans, they pretty much look like Latinas anyway, but Latinas and black women are known for having, big asses, all right? You don't have a lot of that in the other countries, okay? They're not there. So why is it that American women are built different? Well, because we have a lot of so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans here, okay? I watch a lot of horror movies. I won't say a lot, but I've been getting back into watching more movies, and I like horror movies the best. And I was watching a movie called Hostel, all right? And if you haven't seen that, that's a movie to behold. It might not be everyone's cup of tea, but it's like what they would call like a gore fest. But it's a really fucking good movie. I like it. But the thing is that in that movie, there's they go to a hostel, or a hostel, however you want to pronounce it, Hostel. I think it's hostel, not hostel, hostel, like postal, but hostel. And they go to one, and it's in Amsterdam, right? The movie's set in Amsterdam. So Amsterdam is also really known for their red light district. So they happen to go by one. And a red light district, for those brothers and sisters that don't know, is essentially it's legalized prostitution over there. And they have the women. You can see them in the window, at least their silhouettes. And so they have some scenes in some clubs. They have some scenes in some of the in the red light districts and the brothels, and all these. And they show a lot of nude women in that movie, as most horror movies do. And they all don't have anything going on, right? They bigger. Again, I'm trying to keep it Sabbath friendly, but bigger breasts, but they don't have anything going on in the trunk. All right, none going on in the trunk. So when you see white women these days, specifically in America, they don't look how they normally did, all right? They're gaining traits. Some of them have a little bit of Asian eyes. Some of them have, Jake women butts, all right? Some of them have all sorts of different things, right? So when you see the Edomites today, they don't look exactly like the Edomites did back then. Edomites generally were hairier back then, more hairy and red. Okay, but with that, they could have had, just like they do now, tans, okay? But it wouldn't have been a tan like, melanated. I'm not talking about Italian. You just get a little tinge of like, as they said, a little tint of a beige, okay? Nowadays, you see some of these Edomites that can really tan, but that's more than likely because they got some type of trait down in through their bloodline from another nation, right? Not making them another nation because they're still Edomites, but they got a little bit of that pickup, just like the Edomite girls got that pickup from the Jake ass, all right? Because going around there and being around them, distant relatives are on their mother's side that are so-called black individuals. But when you see that, people are going to try to say, well, yeah, sure. I mean, Alexander the Greek or the Great might not have looked 100% just like accurate to what we see white people today, but he was still a so-called white man, a leprous, okay, hairy, so-called white man, okay? He wasn't a black man. He wasn't a brown man. At the most, he could have had a slight tan. Anybody in history, most white people can get a slight tan, but they really don't tan up that well. So anyway, let's go and look into this. Let's see what the apostle has to say here.
The new stumbling block. Alexander the Greek and the Greeks were Israelites. Giving all praise to Yahweh B'Shem Yahushua B'Shem Rakakwadash. And this was put up by one body in Yahushua. So this is the new stumbling block here.
That's back when they called themselves one body in Yahushua.
Amongst Israel, Alexander the Greek and the Greeks were Israelites. Now you had Israelites that followed the customs because they were forced to follow the customs of the Greeks during the time period of mainly Antiochus Epiphanes. That's when Jake was forced to accept the Greek way of life. But Alexander the Great, or the Greek, was not an Israelite. He was an Edomite that was set up to rule the known world at that time. You know, if you read Daniel the 7th chapter, it speaks about him in the form of one of the beasts. It speaks about him as being a leopard. It speaks about him in Daniel 8 as being a goat. The goats represent Esau. The separation in Matthew 25, verse 30-31, the Lord said he's going to separate the sheep from the goats. He's going to separate the Israelites from the Edomites, meaning the wheat from the tares. So Alexander was not an Israelite. He was an Edomite. His father, Philip, king of Macedon, was an Edomite. They were Edomites. The four that took over after the death of Alexander they were Edomites. Antiochus, the Seleucid line, the Ptolemaic line, they were all Edomites. You know, the scriptures speak about them waxing worse and worse. Well, these guys are waxing worse and worse. My question is, what's next? Anyway, with that, I'm going to say shalom.
So there you go. And no, he was not like he mentioned, the Alexander and all the Ptolemaic line. They're Edomites. Okay, they weren't Israelites. So I wanted to put that out there because that has been something that has gone out before. People thinking Alexander the Great was an Israelite. No. Okay, no, absolutely not. So I wanted to get that out there with all this stuff about Alexander the Great. All right, that's they're going off on that. But other than that, there's a lot of good information here, and what we're gonna get, and I was checking the time. We're about 9 minutes over what I like to get a scripture for, because I like to get it within the first 10 minutes, and we're about 20 minutes in. But First Maccabees 3:48, we're all familiar with this, or at least should be, unless you're new. It says, "And laid open the book of the law," that's the Bible, "wherein the heathen," okay, those are the non-Israelite nations, "had sought to paint the likeness of their images." And this is the scripture right here that gives us that little white lie, all right, that talks about that little white lie. And what is that little white lie? Esau's really iconoclasm and crusades, all right, on destroying the, like they mentioned, so-called Black Madonnas, what do they call them? There's another, religious frescoes, statues, all these different types of things, man, all these different things, repainting. And it wasn't just Israel, that they did that through, the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. They didn't just do that to us. They also did that with the Egyptians. They also did it with the Middle Easterners. All right, they did it everywhere. All right, anything that was not, they used to call the Arabs, Saracens. All right, Saracen. I can't remember how you pronounce that. Crusades. Saracens. Okay. It said in medieval Europe, Saracens was a term widely used to describe Muslims during the Crusades of 1095 to 1291 CE. Excuse me, originally referring to Arab tribes. All right, so that's those Ishmaelites. It says the Catholic Church and European Crusaders applied the label to all Islamic forces, so they called them Saracen. And that's what, they referred to them as. So they were also, doing shit with the Arabs, all right, the Ishmaelites, all right, is what their true biblical identity is. And they did it with the Egyptians, whose true biblical identity is the, Hamites, all right, Hamitic nations, all right, the Cushites and all that, going down up there from, all over Egypt, but also with the Cushites being from the, really like the South Sudanese era. And these are individuals where, if you go and look up, were the Egyptians black? And it'll say no, but they were. Okay, it says ancient Egyptians were diverse, and this is the issue, because if you go and look up Egyptians, all right, now, and this is the problem, because a lot of the time what you'll get is when you talk about the Lord, they'll say, he was Middle Eastern, right? Well, the modern Middle Easterners do not look like ancient Middle Easterners, all right? The people of the Middle East primarily back then were black, all right, as they would be called today. And I say not as we are called today, but as they were called today, because it wasn't just the Israelites. It wasn't just the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native American. All right, you also had the Hamites. All right, the Ishmaelites. All right, were very, 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 very dark, not black on the same level as you'd see Jake be as so-called black, but they were very dark. I mean, everybody was dark. I mean, really, if you look into it, everyone's dark or black, so to speak. But the the Moabites and Ammonites, they've gotten very, very light over the years as well. But they used to be darker as well. If you look at 1800s Chinese, now you're gonna have lighter ones, but that's 19th century, that's 1880s. But if you look, they used to be darker. Okay, they used to primarily be darker. I mean, look at this individual to the right here. Okay, but it was very, very frowned upon. A lot of the time you'll see them, the ones that actually got photos taken of them, and that's the issue. It's hard to try to prove something when you with a photo when you know how the history is. Historically, and still to this day, Asians believe that light skin equals a royalty status. It's the same thing that it was in Europe, and really the Moabites model themselves after the Edomites. They want to be like the Edomites. They want to look like the Edomites. They want to talk like the Edomites. They want to dress like the Edomites. They want to be just like the Edomites. At least the modern ones do. It started becoming an issue and more, modern society. The old ones, they wanted to stick with their customs and their gods and all that. But the new ones, they're trying to, the Japanese, Chinese and Japanese, the Moabites and the Ammonites, they're patting themselves after being like the Edomites. And they've always looked up to the Edomites. That's, they were part of that confederacy against us in the first place. And, but they didn't believe that dark skin was beautiful, so they would try to stay out of the sun. They would try to, you see with the geishas or geishas, what they do is they put on paint. And it's white paint, okay? It's white, all right? They want to make themselves look white. They want to make themselves look pale because pale is fair. Fair means good. Okay, that's why you hear fair skin or fair colored skin. Well, fair just means good, all right? So they're saying good colored skin, and what they think fair skin is white. Really, fair skin is melanated skin, But, again, the history has become all fucking discombobulated and confused. But if you look into these older photos, sometimes you'll see dark individuals, but a lot of the time the photos back in the 1800s and 1700s were, late 1700s, were taken, even in the 1900s, early 1900s, they were taken of royalty. Okay, photos were not a cheap thing. They were not just like how it became later with a 35 millimeter roll of film. You can just, snap, and then go drop it off at a Walgreens or Our Photo and then have it done. No, these were, it was the process was a lot. They used like silver something or other. They used like there was all they have a name for it. I can't think of it. Not silver oxide, but there was a name for it. And they use these different types of cyanotyping and all these different types of things to make photos back then. And it was more complex than it is now. So if people were getting their photo done, it was usually someone who was of an important stature. And if you were an important stature or royalty, you would try to keep your skin as light as possible, right? So that's kind of the issue. But if you go and look into it, they were darker than they are now. Okay, they were darker than they are now. Now they, look very, very, very white. Okay, and these ones are light. And again, you're gonna have variation. All right, you're gonna have variation. It's the same thing with the Native Americans. If you go and look at photos of Native Americans, they were darker back then. It's lucky. I just got a charge came in on my card, and I was like, what is that even from? I guess it's just now hitting. It's been pending for a day. But anyway, yeah, man. So they all it's all about looking white. But if you look at the Egyptian people, okay, this is what Egyptian people are today, and they don't look like that, man. They don't look like that. Sometimes they'll get a little bit more generous, and they'll throw you something like this, right? Or they'll throw you something like this. But then you see individuals like this. So which one is it? Right? Which one is it? Now, here we go. Look at this. If you look up Egyptian people, this is what ancient Egyptians looked like. And yeah, for the most part, some of those in there are probably integrated, Jake. But yeah, they were primarily the Cushites. All right. If you look up the Cushites were an ancient civilization based in the region of Nubia, located in present-day Sudan. So you had two different, you had a couple different flavors of Egyptians, again, because you had ones that, and they're going to look, different in skin tones, but they were all what would be considered black, okay? They were all what would be considered black. Now, if you go into it, it said, were the Egyptians black? It says ancient Egyptians were diverse, indigenous, northern African population. Rather than modern black, white, or racial categories, they exhibited a wide range of skin tones, from lighter Mediterranean hues. That's bullshit, because Mediterranean people back then, again, those are Mediterranean, Middle East, they were darker skinned. Okay, they were darker skinned. Again, everybody was. Only Esau was the one that looked all fucked up and weird. Okay, Aisha, all right, wasted away is he. He looked fucked up. Okay, he looked fucked up. That's why the scripture says, and the first came out red all over like a hairy garment. Mind you, it didn't mention how Jake came out, because Jake came out looking normal. All right, it mentioned Esau coming out red because it was fucking weird. All right, because it was something different. Okay, he had leprosy of the skin. All right, and even for leprosy of the skin, he looked even more different than that. Okay, look different than that, because if you see a Jake that has been hit with leprosy of the skin, and you see they look different than an Edomite. All right, and Esau had different features. He was all fucked up. Looked weird. All right, he looked weird. Okay, that's why they say wasted away is he, because he looked fucked up. It said from lighter Mediterranean bullshit, darker tropically adapted African complexions. Yeah, African complexions. That's all you have to say. African complexions. All right, Egypt is in Africa. Egypt is in Africa, okay? So they're going to look African, and the Africans are Hamites, all right? Now, you had the Hamites, and you also had people called Cushites. Cushites are Hamites, all right? They're still, in that area. They're still that region, but they're from an ancient kingdom called Nubia. Now, do you know what a Nubian is? There was actually a band back in the day called Brand Nubian, okay? Brand Nubian as a hip-hop group, all right? Brand Nubian. Okay, and I'm not going to play it again. They formed in 1989, Brand Nubian, And again, as you can see, there were Jake. And if you look at Nubia, it says Nubia generally refers to two distinct concepts: an ancient region in northeastern Africa, and also smartphones. We're not talking about that. We're talking about Nubia. Now, if you look up Nubians, all right, you're going to see some. If you look up Nubian women, they're very, very attractive for the most part. Now, this is bullshit, all right? They're giving you the lightest possible, okay? But if you look at Nubian statues, there you go. Just look at the statues. That's all you need to do. Okay, look at the Nubian descent. Look, statues of Nubian, statuette of a Nubian girl. Okay, just look at the features, look at the nose, look at the hair. Right, look at the hips, look at the waist, man. Look at that. That's not an Edomite. Okay, the Ishmaelites don't look like that either. Okay, the only people that really have the body shape like this is Israelites and Hamites. Okay, they're the only ones that really have this body shape. Okay, that's right here. Look at those hips, man. That's what they would call an hourglass figure. Well, if she was bigger, in the top end. But of course, it's a stylized thing. But yeah, you can go. I mean, look, another one. Boom, hips. Boom, hips. Right? They always make sure to depict the hips. Right? Look, the hips. Right? They always make sure to depict the hips because it's something that's common in Hamitic women and Israelite women. Again, we're not the same nation, but we look similar. All right, we look similar. And again, you can go and look at it over and over and over again, right? This is not what so-called white women look like, all right? This is what so-called black women look like, and Hamitic women as well. Again, Hamitic people look different in the face, all right, but skin tone can be similar. They have a little bit of, I like to call it an ashy undertone. Meanwhile, Jake has a ruddy undertone. They have a, that it looks like their skin's very hydrated. Hamites, a lot of the time, they have a ashy undertone, like a dusty undertone. But, these Nubians, Nubian women, okay, Nubian women, and they're showing you all these light individuals, and that's bullshit, okay? For example, look at this, portrait of a Nubian woman in Egypt in the 1900s. They were darker, okay? And even this was lighter than it is, today. Slimmer noses and stuff like that, but not today than it was. This is still more modern, is what I meant to say. Slovakia. They say this was 1890 actually. So if you go back further, I mean, they get lighter and lighter and lighter and lighter and lighter and lighter. But back, the further you go, it gets darker and darker and darker and darker and darker. Nubians should be looking like this and darker. Okay, they should be looking like this and darker. All right, because the Nubian population are a group of people that were in South Sudan. Okay, well, they say northern Sudan, all right? If you look at Sudanese women, okay, if you look at Sudanese women, okay, they're going to show you all the lighter ones, but this is what Sudanese women look like, okay? Dark, all right? Dark, wonderful melanated skin, as it should be, okay? And they have more, instead of what you would see with traditional Hamitic features, this lady does have a little bit of it in the eyes and the nose. But a lot of the Sudanese look, it's 50-50, but some of them have more of the Jake look, and again, some of them are Jake, and some of them are just Hamites. All right, good. It's there's a lot of Jake in Africa, primarily in West Africa, but you can tell by the way they act, how they are, and then you can also tell who has Hamitic features. Okay. And Jake features, they look different. Here's another one, the very, very, dark skin. It's beautiful dark skin, right? So, you see the dark skin. But this is what they don't like to show you, all right? They don't like to show you. Sudanese people are very dark, very melanated, heavily. But they try to say, it's just this and this and this. The Cushite, well, the Egyptians were regular Hamites, and the Hamites were very dark. All right, and then you look at the Cushites, who were also, dwelling over there, and they were very dark. All right, very dark. Okay, the Sudanese individual, all right, Cushites, Sudanese individuals are well known for being even darker skinned than the rest of Africa. Okay, so it's just, again, lies, man, and that's because, again, they that's what they do. They lie. All right, they go forth as soon as they be born, speaking lies. But that's the thing. Everyone, okay. You can go back and play the video and go through it as much as you want. But there was a couple things that were said there. Let me go see if I can... Which ones do I want to talk about? It said... Let's see. You had Chris Farley going in about Rome. You had right, the one that I like specifically. It was I like all the talk about the Moors. Okay, you heard George Carlin said they won't make movies about the Moors, right? Because if they did, white people would have no history to steal, and they'd be exposed as late arrivals. Okay, it says so they give you crumbs, right? Black Cleopatra, one black gladiator, never the full meal, because the truth would set you free, and they can't have that, right? And it's true. And there was another one. Let me see. He talks about if you think Greece was white, go read Nature Knows No Color by so and so. Now the original Greeks were they were darker. They weren't Edomites. They weren't Israelites either. I can't remember the exact nation. I'm not too well versed on that part of the history. I do know that they weren't. You can go look it up. I can't remember who they were. They were another nation. I can't remember who exactly, but they were not Edomites. Okay, the Edomites came in that area later. Let's see. Yeah, that part said the Trojan War was Moorish. Memnon had braids. Fucking braids. Right? Let's see. Founded by nutritionists, beans. Where was it? It talked about so-called black Roman emperors, and yeah, there was some. All right, there was some. It wasn't the what would you call it? It wasn't the norm, okay, but there was a few. There was not all were Jake, I don't think, but there was one that was a Jake. The apostles talk about it again. I'm not the best with the history. That's not my expertise. Let's see. You see it right here, but they said he said Renaissance repaint. They repainted it. He says we can't have a black Caesar. Paint that motherfucker beige. Right? It's true. Paint him beige. Right? Let's see. That talks about all the Moors. Let's see. There's another one that said. Yeah, at the end, Chris Farley said, they repainted every dark-skinned Madonna, every Moorish saint, every black philosopher, thousands of portraits whitewashed. That's not history. That's a goddamn crime scene. And I actually have some things I want to show on that. And part of that is what we're talking about today with Cesare Borgia. All right, now this is something that we've talked about. Now, a new event. And again, this all goes back into 1 Maccabees 3 and 48, and laid open the book of the law wherein the heathen had sought to paint the likeness of their image. And they were successful with that. All right, they did do it. They sought to, and they actually were able to do it. That's why when you go and look up any biblical figure, what do you see? You see white individuals, okay? People that wouldn't be able to survive in the harsh climates of the Middle East, but somehow they're there, right? Not even a tan either. Bright pink, as they would say, white skin. Okay, as they would say, you can't be out there without getting a tan. Okay, these if you go and look at so-called white people here in Vegas and in Arizona, a lot of them have tans. Now there are some Edomites that they cannot tan. The only thing that they do is burn. Okay, they don't get any darkness to their skin. All right, that means their Edomite lineage runs clean. Right, it runs clean. They're relatively free of Jake features. And if you look at that, if you find the ones that don't get a tan, they burn. What you're going to see is small asses, all right, and relatively normal to small size, breasts. All right, and again, I'm trying to keep it as Sabbath friendly as possible, but I guarantee it 9 times out of 10. 9 times out of 10, do the research yourself, right? The next time you see a woman or hear about a woman that says, I just can't tan, she's a white woman, she's not going to have an ass, and her titties are going to be either, normal or too small, all right? Because they're going to be, again, their bloodline, not their bloodline, but their DNA, all right, is largely unaffected by, Jake traits, okay? Because if they had a little bit of Jake, they had a little bit of that in there, they'd tan up. For example, the Italians, all right? The Italians, they're Edomites, but being that they mixed and mingled with the Moors that were over there, the original Italians were black. They were Moors, all right? They were black Israelites, okay? Israelites. And, after a while, Sicilians, all right? The original Sicilians were black. But they mixed and mingled, all right? Got with women and all that stuff, the heathen women. And the men got with Jake women, and vice versa, right? And because you had heathen men getting with black so-called Italian, which were really Israelite women, their line continued on, all right, went down, and they looked a little darker, okay? And the Edomites came over, all right, to colonize and do what they did. They look a little darker. So people like one of my cousins who has an Italian father. He is a regular looking white guy, but he gets very, very tan in the sun, very dark, all right, Mexican dark. All right, he has brown eyes and he has brown hair, right? I think he has brown eyes. But yeah, he has brown hair, right, and gets very, 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 very tan. But his mom, and his sisters, they do not tan at all. Okay, they do not tan at all. Okay, they don't, and they're flat. Okay, they're flat too. Boobs, but that's it. Just flat. Other than that, all right. That's the only thing that a white woman can really get is in like the Scandinavian countries, depending on where they are. Some of them can have bigger busts, but that's about it. So where you see an Edomite that cannot tan, if it's a woman at least, because there's not really anything else you can see on a man, but when it's a woman, notice that you will likely see no rear end, right? Just showing you that they're relatively unaffected. They don't have much of that extra Jake DNA artifacts, right? Such as bigger rear ends, being prettier in general, more shapely bodies, more curves, all right, thicker thighs, the hourglass shape, right? They're not going to have all those. They're going to be pretty plain, okay, pretty plain. So let's get, what do we want to get? So let me mark this one down because I got that one. 1 Maccabees 3:48. So let's jump over here, right? It says Cesare Borgia. Now, one thing that I noticed is that right here, this is a new photo. I don't remember. Now, I could be remembering wrong. Okay, I could be remembering wrong, but I don't think that I am. This was not the photo, because the new thing is that if you go to Snopes, all right, they're the ones that are known for their fact checking. All right, now if you look up our Snopes fact checks biased, it'll say yes, Snope faces frequent accusations of political bias, and it actually says they lean left. So you can't fact check something when you're already biased. It's that you just can't do it. All right, it's impossible. Okay, now they're saying, it says, is the modern face of Jesus modeled on a gangster son? All right, and the gangster son being, of course, Cesare Borgia. He's that son? It's a pope son, actually. He was the what is it? The fifth IV. That's. Yeah, V is 5, isn't it? So that's V is I is 1, and then the other's 5. So that's 6. Yeah. So I believe I'm still trying to get better with Roman numeral. It's 4. That's why. Duh, it's not 6. I'm a moron. When it's to the left, all right, that's how it goes. So I is 1, and then V is 5. But when you have a lesser numeral to the left of one that's higher, you have to subtract that from the. So if the V is 5, you have to subtract the I from the 5, and that gives you 4. Duh. All right, Slovakia. I got to put that in my brain. That's why. See, that's it's just math. All right, Roman numerals just math. But anyway, so Ivy is 4. All right, so Pope Alexander IV. Okay, it says stop worshiping my portrait. My name was Cesare Borgia. I was the son of Pope Alexander IV, who forced my image on the church. My father, his real name was Rodrigo Borgia, was a gangster, warmongering, greedy, orgy-loving dictator who began using my portrait in 1490 to claim he was God. There's a lot more to it than that, and some of that's not entirely factual, but there's going to be different versions of it. This one right here says, "Stop worshiping my portrait. My name was Cesare Borgia. I was the son of Pope Alexander IV, who forced my image on the church. My father, his real name was Rodrigo Borgia," yada, 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 right? You see it. And it is the image of Cesare Borgia, all right? And his father was Pope Alexander IV. But there's, more stuff. Now they're saying his real name was Rodrigo Borgia. He was a gangster. I don't know about that specifically. I'm sure it probably would be accurate. But it says he began using my portrait in 1490 to claim he was God. Don't know about that, but we can go and research and look into things. But anyway, the thing that I wanted to show here is there's a lot of bullshit in here. It says this scant record, which means scant means little populated or small record, includes another portrait which bears no noteworthy resemblance to either contemporary 15th century or modern depictions of Jesus. Now, to me, it just seems a little interesting that it says this portrait right here shows no, because they like to show well, really, if you just go and look up Cesare Borgia. Because what they've really done is they've purged the Wikipedia. If you look up his page, one of the first ones that come up is this. And these do all share great resemblance, okay, to this character, Jesus Christ, okay? But the problem is that they don't like that, okay? They don't like that. So what they have done, okay, is that they have tried to make this image go away for the most part. And when I say go away, you can still find it on the internet. It's right here. But when it comes to when you first look up Cesare Borgia, all right, they want it to be anything but this image, okay, which is the more popular image of him. They want it to have one that's the side of his face or one of these other ones that's probably, made at a later time, okay. This one shows no record, which is curious to me because now that's the picture that they're using right here. Now, I went and looked into it because I was like, at least within last year, okay, at least within the last year, if you go and view history, I said within the last year, it hasn't been that image, okay? But if you go and get the last 100, well, we'll just get off, 500 and we'll just scroll. So if you scroll down, we'll go to, January of 2025. I remember in January 2025 of the image being something completely different. But as you can see, it says here that this was the image. That's bullshit. I know for a fact this was not the one that came up on the website, okay? And you brothers and sisters, matter of fact, Shalom. Well, that ain't it either. Let me see. Let's see. Trying to see. I know I pulled up Cesare Borgia before. Let's see. Of course I can't find it now. I know I've had ones, I just don't know where. I don't know where it would be. You know what I can do? I can't find it in mine, but I can find it in one of the brothers or apostles. So let's go and see. Brother seems to changed his name. Or maybe I'm thinking of this page. I don't know. Let's see. Let's get oh, I know the apostle should have it. Borgia. Let's try over here. Excuse me. Okay, let's find let's see, let's go here. It's not the Wikipedia page.
All right. Created it until
Trying to find. Let's see. Man, it's gonna drive me nuts. I'm not gonna spend too much time. I wish I could. Every time, you can find something, but as soon as you go to a lesson, Satan has it where, you search and you search and you search and you can't find shit about it. Pisses me off, man. If I can find a brother that uses the Wikipedia. Let's see. Let's I just find it hard to believe that they don't have a lesson with Borgia in the name. I don't believe it. None of them. No one. Maybe on the Apostles' old page. Where's the Apostles' new page? Let me see. While we're here, let's see if the Apostle Ramallah got one. Nope. Let's try the Elder Menashe doesn't usually go into lessons too much like that. Let me try to find one. Man, this is pissing me off is what it's doing. And tell me, no, brother. And I think they're messing with the search results now, too. Because I know they're messing with this search results, but I'm thinking they're messing with the ones on the page so you can hide videos. Let's see the old page. No. I know for a fact the Apostle's done something with the Borgia family. I know for a fact Apostle Gabar has too. Let me type in Borgia one more time. Type in Jesus. Serapis Christus, yeah, that's another thing as well. That's where it really goes back to. Well, oh well. I have one other way I can prove it. One other way I can prove it. Let's see. Hold up. Let me get over into archive.org 1 minute. Alright, Slakia. Slakia for all the dead air time, man. I hate that shit. So, Slakia. I haven't got nearly as many scriptures. I only got 4 scriptures, but half the time I've been trying to search this fucking information and it won't even come up because Esau's fucking with everything, man. It's pissing me off. Slakia. But anyway, here we are on the Wayback Machine, the Internet Archive, the machine that they're trying to get rid of. And I'm just going to go back to 2025 and see if I'm tripping. So this is the same page, so I put the page in, right, you go over here, you copy the page in, and it actually takes snapshots. People take snapshots of what it used to look like. So it's still saying it was this. I don't remember it being this. This seems like some type of fucking Mandela effect to me, damn near. Let's see, go to 2023. Like I said, I don't know. You brothers that have been on the page, type it down below. Let me know if I'm tripping, because I remember this being the first image that came up. This used to be the one when you clicked and it was right here. The image under the text said Cesare Borgia. It used to be this image. That's what I remember, at least. I could be tripping, so, let me know if I'm tripping. Because it just seems like, it just seems a little weird to me. I don't know. Let's go to 2021. Nope. They're still saying it was that image. Now, I looked around because it was kind of bugging me, man. And I went to view history, and I don't know when it started, but I do know that if you go down to even further, to around 09 or around this area. Nope. When did they change it? Okay, so hold up. We just had one just then. So October of 2008. Okay, 08. December of 08. December of 08. January 2009. January 15th. It's 2009. Let's check 2011. Was it changed yet? Nope. Let's go higher. 2014. Was it changed yet? Nope. I want to find the exact moment it changed, because that's the image. Like I said, you click on all these from 2014, 2020, and I wasn't even in the truth then. This is the image I remember. Yeah, and you'd find this one lower. All right. So, and I don't even think, first of all, I don't think I've ever really even seen that image like that too much. So, let's go higher. Let's go to 2018. So in 2018, it was still that same image. Let's go 2019. Ooh, it changed in 2019 at some point. February. Okay, hold up. Getting close. So February 25th, it was still that same image. March 2019. So March 2019, it was still fine. March 8th. Aha. We found it. So from March 7th. Now, see now. Okay, what's fucking happening now? Okay, March 3rd. Okay. So from March. Okay, so there we go. So from March 7th. Excuse me. From March 3rd. March 3rd, it was that image that I remember. They say on March 7th of 2019, that's when it switched. I don't remember this. I remember. This is what I remember the page looking like. Okay, I could be tripping. Is this the page, you brothers? Again, you brothers, you sisters, if you've been to the page, you can, put it down. Do you remember this image, or do you remember this image? All right. Do you remember this image? Do you remember this image? All right, brothers and sisters can comment, and I'll do it how the Apostle Gabar does it. If you remember the new image, put 2. If you remember the old image, put 1. All right, in the chat, just type 1 or 2, because I remember this one, but they're saying this hasn't been around since 2019, and I could be losing it. I could be bugging, but I think something's fucked up or changed with their shit, and I don't know if they're trying to cover it up, because I remember even as like last year, this was the image that would come up, because when I saw this was jarring to me. Why would it all of a sudden be jarring to me? I said, I don't fucking remember this shit. All right, this is the image I remember popping up, but correct me if I'm wrong. All right, let me know, brothers and sisters. Again, put 2 if this new image is the one you remember, or 1 if this older image is the one that you remember being on here. And again, don't bullshit. Just put what you legitimately, if you've been on the page, answer if you've been on the page, if that's the one you remember. Because for some reason they're saying it's this, and I don't think it is. I don't think it is. It's I'm calling conspiracy theory on that, because I just don't think it. But anyway, if we can get back to the page, go to the current revision. Okay, this is the most current one. It says Cesare Borgia was an Italian cardinal deacon and later a condottiero, as well as a member of the Spanish House of Borgia, all right, which is the first crime family. It says he was the illegitimate bastard son of Pope Alexander IV and a sibling to Lucrezia Borgia, which I believe he murdered. I think he was killed, or she. Looks like a man. Death. 39. Maybe not. I know he went and killed a whole bunch of people. He killed some family members. Death. Doesn't say, but you can see it. Illegitimate son of Pope Alexander IV. Pope Alexander IV. Born of the prominent Borgia family on the crown of Aragon. Present day Spain, Edomites. All right, Edomites. What else can we get out of this? Let's see. Alexander's papal bulls of 1493 confirmed or reconfirmed the rights of the Spanish crown in the New World following the finds of Christopher Columbus in 1492. During the Second Italian War, Alexander IV supported his son Cesare Borgia as a whatever that, how do you pronounce that, for the French king. The scope of his foreign policy was to gain in most advantageous terms for his family. So he wanted to gain something that was most advantageous for his family. And that's the type of individual this person was. So, of course, through the workings of Da Vinci, all right, had his son, okay, painted as the image for the Messiah. Now, did Da Vinci work with or for the Borgia family? Should say yes. Yes, Leonardo da Vinci worked directly for the notorious Cesare Borgia, the son of Pope Alexander IV, and his general architect and engineer. His role, Leonardo inspected, designed, and mapped military formations, drawing up highly accurate topographic maps to aid Borgia in his conquests. He also designed advanced siege engines and defensive machinery. Was he also in used for portraits? Should say yes. It says no. He was not used as a portrait painter for the Borgia family. Despite his immense fame as an artist, Cesare Borgia hired Leonardo exclusively for his military engineering and cartographic skills. Well, again, they gotta hide some shit. They can't let you know everything, right? Anyway, you can see it says, "Oh, this is false." Let's go and listen to a little bit of this. I'm not gonna read it. I'm just gonna have I have this little thing that you can get. It's called voiceover. I think it's called Read Aloud. It's called Read Aloud. You go to Read Aloud, and then once you're there, you'll hit Settings, and then you'll go to Settings, and you can choose a voice. Why did it go away? Huh.
Is the modern face of Jesus.
I had Piper Voices installed. It glitched. So let's just use, what does David sound like?
Read Aloud is a Chrome and Firefox. Read Aloud is a...
I don't like this. Hold up. You know what it was? I cleared the cache earlier. Hold up. Bear with me. And this is how you get the better sounding voices if you want to get this plugin. I like using,
A rainbow is a meteorological phenomenon that is caused by reflection, refraction, and dispersion of light in water droplets, resulting in a spectrum of light appearing.
How do I unpin this? Okay.
Channel content.
Get out of here. Oh, Slovakia. Is it still on 1.2?
Read Aloud is a Chrome.
Cool.
Channel content.
No. Get out of here. Alright. Let's hear a little bit of this red. So let's just go all the way down and read all of it. Okay.
Whether modern depictions of the appearance of Jesus are historically accurate has long been a subject of debate, and one rumor related to the debate holds that the modern image of Jesus is largely based on the appearance of Cesare Borgia, a 15th century Italian nobleman. Claims about Cesare Borgia's likeness forming the basis for all modern depictions of Jesus are scattered. An online encyclopedia of dubious merit asserts the rumor as a little-known fact, crediting French novelist Alexandre Dumas for the notion that Borgia influenced many images of Jesus Christ painted during and subsequent to his career. Dumas was well celebrated a writer of fiction and not an historian. The rumor is frequently attributed to volume I of Dumas' celebrated Crimes to Borgias, but we were unable to locate an expression of it in the essay. Myriad online image macros assert that Borgia's father forced his son's visage into art history acclaim, offered as an irony given that the Borgia family was supposedly not Christ-like, but no evidence ever accompanies such assertions. Such images imply that the relatively standardized modern depiction of Jesus emerged in approximately 1490, but art historians might argue otherwise. Although the Renaissance produced a vast quantity of the most prominent depictions of Jesus, plenty of artworks, antedating 1490, bear the same visual qualities but were purportedly based on those of Borgia. The need for representations of Christ's life in Italy was based on official practice within the Western Church.
So, first of all, what they're saying there is they're saying that such images imply the relatively standardized modern depiction of Jesus emerged in approximately 1490. Yeah, for the relatively standardized modern depiction, that's true. Now they try to say that they'll go on later, try to save face, and they say, oh, that wasn't the first time that there were white Christs were depicted. Yeah, of course not. But he became, like you said, the standardized modern depiction of this Jesus individual. Okay, and I say Jesus individual because why in the Bible you do hear the name Jesus. All right, you do see the name Jesus. That's a translation error of the name Yahweh. Okay, it's a bastardized version of Greek. Because Greek, the name would be Iesus, and that's why it's bastardized. They took a Greek name, Iesus, all right, which was a incorrect translation of Yahweh, and then on top of that Greek translation, a bad translation of that's Iesus, they put a J instead of the I because they removed the I and replaced it with a J in later English, all right, with Giorgiano Triciano, all right, the father of the J. So it's like a fucking amalgamation that they made, right? So that you see that name in the Bible, and that refers to who we call Yahweh, all right, and it's the true Jesus. Again, we're not talking about who, we're not talking smack about what that individual in the Bible that name Jesus is attributed to. That's just not his name, all right. His name is Yahweh. Now, outside of the Bible, as I always like to mention, the Christians have turned that name into something completely different, all right. Jesus in the Bible is a dark-skinned man. Okay, if you want to still use that name. Again, we translate it to the correct translation in ancient Hebrew, which is Yahweh. But if you want to use a false translation, you go right ahead. I mean, it's not the name, all right? And you need the names. You need the names, all right? They are a requirement, okay? They are a requirement. But if you don't want them, hey, we can't, nobody can force you to get anything. But the Lord's the one that either gives you his name or doesn't. But they go on outside of the Bible and they make him white. They make him love everybody, go against the will of his father, and the out of Bible depiction of Jesus is completely bullshit and completely off and completely wicked and completely heretical and completely against biblical scripture. Now, within the Bible, you'll see that name Jesus, and the Jesus within the Bible is the Yahweh that we talk about. Okay. Same thing with the God in the Bible is the Yahweh that we talk about. We just use their correct names. But out of the Bible, God and Jesus are two very different people than they are in the Bible. Okay, they love everybody. God apparently loves the sinner and hates the sin, and tells everybody not to judge, even though he made scriptures that told you to judge righteous judgment. Just a whole bunch, right? And that's that Christian ideology. So again, there's been white depictions, but like this this individual that wrote this Snopes forum said, it is the relatively standardized modern depiction is Cesare Borgia. That's what he is, right? They say it implies. It's not. It's implied. It's truth, right? It's the standard version.
Although the Renaissance produced a vast quantity of the most prominent depictions of Jesus, plenty of artworks, antedating 1490, bear the same visual qualities but were purportedly based on those of Borgia. The need for representations of Christ's life in Italy was based on official practice within the Western Church. From the time of Pope Gregory the Great, images were valued both as lessons for the unlettered and as aids to worship. Scenes from Christ's life were thus desirable in churches, on frescoed walls and painted altarpieces, and also in portable form in illustrated books and small altarpieces suitable for private consumption. Images were meant to enhance the experience of the faithful both in communal and in individual worship, and devotional treatises gave instructions for how to use pictures to enter more fully into sacred history. In the 14th and 15th centuries, such pictures often occurred in series that allowed viewers to trace the progression of events, but the stories of Christ's life were also represented in independent easel paintings, especially in the 16th century and after. Contrary to claims that Jesus' now common characteristics emerged in 1490, artworks from the Middle Ages and early Renaissance depicted Jesus in very much the same way the later artworks did.
No.
Giotto di Bondon's well-known 1305 mural The Lamentation of Christ features a white man with long brown hair, and Sandro Botticelli's 1487 Madonna of the Pomegranate depicts a similarly featured infant Christ.
So, right there, we'll pause it. It says, in much the same way, now it says, contrary to the claims that Jesus' now common characteristics emerged in 1490. Yeah, well, I mean, it's, again, this guy's trying to, he's not getting it. So artworks in the Middle Ages and early Renaissance depicted him in the same way. Yeah, the early Renaissance, it's the fucking Renaissance. That means rebirth. That's when they did it, you dipshit. All right? But they morphed, they morphed it into the standardized. You got it, and then you lost it. Cesare Borgia is the standardized image. You have other images of white Christs, all right? Like, for example, if it'll load, of course. Lamentation of Christ. If you just look it up, the Lamentation of Christ, it's going to pop up. It's this image. Now, does this look like Cesare Borgia? No. And also, if you look at the skin tone, it's, you could say it's gray because of, being a corpse. But the fact is that, no, it doesn't look exactly like Cesare Borgia. Okay? This image, okay, doesn't look exactly like Cesare Borgia. And you're saying, oh, no, it looks like that. No, that's before the standardization hit. Okay? Cesare Borgia became the standardization that people know now. They've had Serapis Christos. That's where all that white supremacy probably won't even come up. Serapis Christus. Yeah. So this is where all this, this white worship, originated from, right? Okay, Greek converts changed Yahushai's name to Iesus. All right, and they say it means "Hail Zeus" in honor of their favorite supreme god. Well, Jesus means earth pig. Okay, earth pig, or another translation, dirty earth. So that's what they do. But if you look at it, yeah, it looks like how they depict Zeus anyway. I mean, all the Greek depictions kind of look the same anyway. But this is where the white supremacy, really took root right here was with Serapis Christus. And this was in 3rd century BC. So that's not what we're saying. We're not saying that that's all, it came about in 1490. No, there was, of course, white depictions, Edomite depictions of the Savior, for a long time. A long time. Okay, they were doing it. They were doing that before. There was how do I want to explain it? There were, well, if you go back into BCE, okay, that means BCE is before Yahushai died and all that. So and it's been taught before that there has been false Christ before even the Lord was on the scene. All right, Yahushai was on the scene. So it's very, 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 very deeply rooted. All right, it's very deeply rooted. But what we're talking about is not, we weren't really, I didn't really plan on going into Serapis Christus. That's really where modern white Christianity of, really originated. But we're talking about Cesare Borgia, all right, who became, as you got earlier, standardized, the standardized modern depiction, okay? You're not seeing a lamentation of Christ in people's house. You're not seeing Madonna of a pomegranate. You're not seeing this hardly too much in people's house. What you're seeing is the Sacred Heart, okay? And at least in the Catholics. This is the image you see. These two images right here and right here are some of the two most popular images of who they call Christ. Okay, this image as well, and this image. These are the three most popular. If you look up Jesus, there it is. That's another. Okay, I'll say this one. Okay. That's the other one. I'd say this one, and this one. Well, those are kind of the same ones. Not the, where's the other one? There was another one. This one's pretty popular too. I see this one a lot. So if you go off of those ones, primarily this one and this one, okay, and this one, these are the images that came from that standardized, right, Cesare Borgia, all right, order. All right, I don't know if it was called, Cesare Borgia order, but the order that came from the Pope of having him depicted as the Savior, right? It says, Madonna pomegranate depicts a similar featured infant Christ. Hieronymus Bosch's essay Homo also antedates 1490, but demonstrates a recognizably familiar Jesus. Not really, no. Not really. The eyes are different and everything. And the hair, well, the hair, that really all came from the letter of Lentulus. All right, Lentulus. And this was from, let's see, the 5th century manuscript. Okay, 1500s. Okay. Or not 1500, 1401 to 1500. So really 1401 to 1500. It was they say it's apocrypha and it's fake, but if you go and look at it, this is the image, Publius Lentulus. It says his report to the Senate of Rome concerning Jesus Christ. It says, in the days of Tiberius Caesar, the emperor Publius Lentulus, being at that time president in Judea, wrote an epistle to the Senate of Rome, the words whereof were there as followed. Listen, there appeared in these our days a man of great virtue called Jesus Christ, who is yet living amongst us, and the people is accepted for a prophet, but his own disciples call him the Son of God. He raised the dead and cureth all manner of diseases, and a man of stature, somewhat tall and comely, with very reverend countenance, such as the beholders may be both love and fear. Now here, this is a bugged out order, a false order that went out in Rome to, well, listen, his hair of the color of a chestnut, full ripe, and plain, offmost down to his ears. Okay, so chestnut hair down to his ears. Okay, so let me write that down for a note. Chestnut hair down to his ears. Right? Slightly curled. Slightly curled, but from his ears downwards somewhat curl, and more orient of coloring, wavering about his shoulders. It says, in the middle of his head goeth a seam or partition of hair, all right, parted in middle. Parted in middle. Okay, now this is earlier than the Cesare Borgia order. Okay, and I'm again, that there's not something literally called the Cesare Borgia order. I'm just, making a name for it. When that went out, all right, of Cesare Borgia is now the standardized image, right? This went out before that. Okay, so of course, Cesare Borgia fits the description pretty well, so why not just use him? It says his forehead very plain and smooth, his face without spot or wrinkle, beautified with a comely red, his nose and mouth so formed as nothing can be reprehended, his beard somewhat thick, agreeable in color to the hair of his head, not of any great length, but forked in the middle. Okay, beard forked. Okay, it says forked in the middle, his eyes gray, clear, and quick. It says, and reproving, he is severe and admonishing, courteous and fair spoken, pleasant in speech mixed with gravity. I must have missed his skin color. It was in here somewhere. It cannot be reprehended that any have seen him laugh, but many have seen him weep. In proportion of body, well shaped and straight, his hands and arms very delectable to hold, and speaking very temperate, modest, and wise. A man for his singular beauty surpassing the children of men. Let me see. Let's see. Right there, yeah, see. Head goes, go with the seam partition of his hair after the manner of the Nazarites. Yahushua was not a Nazarite. Okay, you can go and look that up. He was a Nazarene. Okay. No, Jesus was not a Nazarite. He's entirely different from a Nazarite. One who took a religious vow is different from a Nazarene, someone who comes from the town of Nazareth. Okay, he was a Nazarene, not a Nazarite. That's probably why they picture him with long hair, is because of the confusion between Nazarene and Nazarite. Stupid. His face without spot and wrinkle, beautified with a comely red. So it's basically, yeah. So red skin. See, back then, that's what red meant. Red meant, so-called white. So I'm going to save this. This is the Publius Lentellus. And I'll save this in the Rakakwadash under info. Boom. So there you go. What was that I accidentally just closed out of? Oh, a picture of Jesus. So let's go and check. Okay, let's go and check. Okay. Chestnut hair down to about his ears. A little bit longer than that. Slightly curled. Yep. Parted in the middle. Yep. Forked beard. Yep. Red skin. Yep. So, fits. 100%. Fits 100%. 100%. All right, you can go look this. Forked in the middle as well. Okay? Forked in the middle as well. Well, if it's bullshit, forked in the middle as well. If it's bullshit, then why do all the depictions fit it? Ask yourself that. Forked in the middle. That's all you gotta ask. Now, they said gray eyes, too. Now, notice that they didn't give him gray eyes for the most part. They gave him brown, all right, or blue. Depends. They changed the eye color. Really, his eyes are red as a flame of fire. But we saw that. We saw that in the, as they call it, the Lentius or whatever the fuck, right? So let's go see what the scriptures say about it. Let's go and get Daniel 10 and 5, okay, through 6, because that's dealing with Yahushai, right? It says Daniel 10. Let's do something here. Okay. Daniel, I got them both up right here. Okay, so I can write both of these off. Okay. Daniel 10 and 5 through 6. Then I lifted up my eyes and looked, and behold, a certain man clothed in linen, whose loins were girded in fine gold of Uphaz. His body also was like the beryl, and beryl is a stone. That doesn't mean that was like the what he was radiating off. All right, it wasn't that that was literally the color of his skin, because beryl is usually like a bluish green. No one's a bluish green. Okay, I said it gives you the skin color anyway. Here it says, and his face as the appearance of lightning, and his eyes as lamps of fire. So eyes as lamps of fire. All right, and his arms and his feet like in color to polished brass, and the voice of his words like the voice of a multitude. So if I go and get polished brass, okay, now this is modern polished brass, okay, antique polished brass, okay, there you go. Brass has changed color over the years, but this is what it used to look like, okay, antique polished brass, brown, okay, brown. Nobody's, and mind you, you say, oh, well, look at this. This is what it is. Well, let me show you something. Let's, who do we want to grab for our coloring book? We'll just do this one. Let it load. Let it load. While we're doing that, okay, let's go get a couple variations. Okay. Just get polished brass in general, right? Now this is more gold. Okay, this is more of a gold. Okay, you can actually go. It has modern brass become more gold looking. Modern brass has not changed in base composition, but the finishes have been intentionally redesigned to mimic the look of real gold. It said, instead of the bright yellow-orange polished brass in the 80s, modern brass features soft, matte, and champagne-hued tones that resemble high-end brushed gold. So they've made it specifically to look like, if we do unlacquered, okay? Because when they lacquer it, and they try to make it fucking change the colors and everything. So these are the different colors of brass you can get, right? So, let's save that. And then, let's look up ancient brass. This is a ancient brass pot. Okay? What else? Brass ewer. Again, old. Okay? Here's another one, even lighter. Excuse me. Okay? I think these will be enough, right? There's also this ancient Greek bronze. Okay? Well, it's bronze, but, you know. So let's just go and see, right? Let's go and see here. So, okay, good. Just making sure that... Okay. Actually, you know what? This is indexed color. Hold up. I don't like indexed color. It's gonna fuck everything up. I want it to be accurate color. There we go. Okay, it needs to be accurate to up there. Okay. So let's go and see. Do. Get the highlight with the light. Okay. So if you had someone this was this color, okay, it wouldn't be white. If you had someone this was this color, they wouldn't be white. All right. If you had someone that was this color, they would not be white. Where are we at here? And mind you, I took it from the lighter place because I could have took it from down here. Okay, I'm taking it from the highlights. Even if I took it from the highlights, it's close. But no, those are from the highlights. If I take it from the actual areas that are not highlights, like if I go down here, there you go. If I take this one from an area that's not highlight, and you don't want to get it too low or else it'll be a shadow, start seeing a couple issues pop up here. Okay? Quite a few issues start popping up. And what is that issue? Well, who is this? The skin tone does not look like a white individual. Okay, and these are brass. These are all brass. Okay, and we haven't even got into this. This is ancient brass. Let's take it from the lightest part here. Right there. Just so we can take it from the lightest part. There you go. So, you see it, man. You see it. You might not accept it, but you see it. Okay? So, that's all we need. keep that one because we're talking about that one in a minute. So that's brass. So going back, and his arms and his feet in color to polished brass, and the voice of his words like the voice of a multitude. Now, similar depiction in Revelation 1 and 14 through 15. It says, his head and his hairs were white like wool, as white as snow. Okay? It says, and his eyes were as a flame of fire. Over here it said, as lamps of fire. It says, and his feet like unto fine brass, as if they burn in a furnace. So this one mentions specifically burnt brass. This one says polished brass. This one says burnt brass. So a brassy color, which is dark brown. And his voice as the sound of many waters. Over here it says a voice of a multitude. So there you go. Talking about the same individual. Okay. Now if you go and get the Father, he's mentioned in Daniel 7 and 9. Okay. And you look very similar to your Father, and the Father looks very similar to the Son, right? If you ever see anybody, oh, you look like your father. Oh, you kind of look like, you kind of look like your dad, So, oh, you kind of look like your son, so on and so forth. Daniel 7 and 9. I beheld till the thrones were cast down, and the Ancient of Days did sit. That's Yahweh. That's who the world would call God. Ancient of Days. It says, whose garment was white as snow, and the hair of his head like the pure wool. So a lot of people like to say in Revelation 11 and 14 through 15, they say, oh, his hair was white. Right? It doesn't mean that it was woolly. Well, this one doesn't mention color. It just says, and the hair of his head like the pure wool. And wool comes in many different colors, mind you. Okay, it comes in many different colors, but this is wool texture. It just shows you that in Revelation 1 and 14 through 15, dealing with Yahushua, that his hair is white and woolly. Okay, white and woolly. Now, Yahweh's hair is also white and woolly as well, but it's right here, it's mentioning pure wool. Okay, the pure wool. The pure wool. And the most prominent color of wool is white anyway. But it says, his throne was like the fiery flame, and his wheels as burning fire. So there you go. So those are the scriptures that I had planned. So does this match up with this decree? And that's a decree, okay, that this went out, right? This is what they used. This is a report, okay? This is what they used actually to, oh, well, he should have, clear eyes. He should have, a beard with a fork in the middle. That's what they used, right? That's what they used. So they mention, is it this image? Again, they're trying to show all these different ones. What's the one? Another work. See how it looks just the same? That doesn't look just the same. Nice try, though. I'm trying to find... There was this image that I had up here. Let me go through... It's not this one. I've already checked it several times. This one. I'll recheck them all. A lot of them. Anyway, this was one of the ones that they said to go and check out. All right, this was not the first time. Or maybe it wasn't this page. Maybe it was from another page that I found. But this page, this image, right, is clearly tampered with. Okay, clearly tampered with. Okay, you can see that all these things are fading off. But they make sure that all this white stands out, and then right in the middle has had the most tampering. It has had the most tampering right in the middle. Because this doesn't even look like, look at all how worn this is. Look at these different, look at the pigments. Look at the pigments, look at how worn it is, and then boom. Look at how it looks in the middle. They've tampered with it. It's because they've repainted. And right here you can see, right under here, you can say that's a shadow. I doubt that's a shadow. I guarantee that's something that they repainted over. Right here with a darker pigment, but you can say whatever you want, right? I had Claude analyze it. And I said, in your assessment, not from outside information, can you carefully examine this artwork and determine whether or not the character in the middle, all right, they would call Christ, has been repainted, altered, or messed with in any way? I forgot to put a space. It says, be sure to use attention to detail and cross-reference it with the rest of the painting. Let me grab this drink of water. It says, looking closely at the central figure, Christ in majesty within the mandalora, compared to the surrounding panels, a few things stand out that suggest the central figure has seen more intervention or restoration than the side scenes. And I try to cover it up at first. Condition contrast. It says the four corner side narrative scenes, the knight, the beggar, the angels, the riders, the bishops, the donors, and the scene in the lower right, are heavily abraded. The gold ochre ground shows thoroughly extensively faces and drapery are fragmentary, and pigment loss is widespread and irregular, consistent with centuries of natural wear and flaking. The central Christ figure, by contrast, is remarkably intact. The halo, facial features, drapery folds, and the red gold color blocking are crisp, fully saturated, and evenly preserved. There's a marked jump in the completeness of paint layer between the Mandalora figure and everything around it, which is unusual if the whole panel aged uniformly. It didn't. It didn't age uniformly. They fucking changed it, is what they did. Who knows what it could have been, all right? But they changed it. It says color and line quality. The reds and ochres in Christ's robe appear more uniformly saturated and less mottled than the reds used everywhere else on the panel. Example, the rider's red cloth at the upper left, which is patchy and worn. Patchy and worn, patchy and worn. Not patchy and worn. Patchy and worn, not patchy and worn. Another thing I noticed is that, they have this red, this red, this red, and then all of a sudden, this is like almost this red, but it's different. It's different. And I've noticed that this seems to be more, it looks like more modern pigment. So going back, it says the outline work around Christ's face, hands, and drapery folds look completely crisp and dark, with less of the softening loss of line seen in the side figures' faces, several of which have lost most facial detail entirely. Again, you look at this and then look, it's crisp lines. Not so many crisp lines. This is very crisp in its lines. It says surface texture clues. The craquelure pattern visible across the gold background and side scenes doesn't read as strongly across the Mandalora and Christ's robes. The surface there looks smoother, which can indicate a different, more recent or better preserved paint layer. A more recent paint layer. There you go. Or better preserved. Now, it would be uniformly preserved. It means it's a more recent paint layer. In painting or a varnish consolidation campaign focuses on the devotional focal point. The blue of the Mandalore itself is unusually even and flat compared to the mottled worn backgrounds elsewhere on the panel. Overall assessment, nothing here proves modern overpainting, definitely from photo alone, but the disparity in preservation, a pristine high contrast central icon set against a heavily worn fragmentary surrounding narrative, is a classic pattern seen in panels where the devotional image received targeted conservation, retouching, or historical refreshing, a very common practice for altar frontals like this, since the central cult image was the object of veneration and got touched up over generations, while side scenes were left alone. If I had to flag one area as the most likely to have been reworked, it would be the Christ figure and the Mandalora. So they say it's because, it's touch-ups over years. Say it was touch-ups. Who's to say they don't just gradually make it lighter and lighter and lighter and lighter and lighter? Right? We should just trust them that didn't happen. Bullshit. All right? And there's just so many more things that I can, touch on, but we're going to get closing out. This is a good read if you want to read it. I'm not going to go into it here, but you can just type in Becoming Blonde in Renaissance Italy. If you type that in, it should pop up. Yeah, here it is. So, Becoming Blonde in Renaissance Italy, Journal of the Walters Art Museum. Go here and read about it. They believe that blondness and leprosy, it's not going to be word for word leprosy, but pale skin, blue eyes, blonde hair, that was, wealth. That was what was right. So, of course, people would just, paint themselves as blonde. They would paint themselves lighter. And, of course, that, went over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. All right. And they'd also do what? Elaborate time-consuming ritual to achieve the prized golden or strawberry blonde Venetian blonde hair. Okay, so there you go. So go and look into those things, man. Go and check them out. So that's where it close out. Lord, and what was edifying. Again, I want to give all praise, honor, and glory to the Most High. Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Rakak. Shalom to your brothers and sisters out there. Keep enduring, keep the faith. We're almost out of here. Lord, and what was edifying. Until next one, Lord willing. Shalom.